Okay, here we are in the electronic supervision record, esupervisionrecord.com. This is a system built for clinical supervisors of all mental health designations, as well as financial therapist supervisors, as a one-stop shop to put your notes that feels separate and protected from client work, because those are two different services and have two different needs. So up here on the homepage, we've got a bunch of information, an announcement about this EHR, or in this case, ESR, community partners, and frequently asked questions. So for folks who are asking about what's the subscription cost, how do I upload my credit card, how do I cancel if I need to, and suggestions for features, it just shows how to reach us directly. So for new folks, they would register, which is a pretty simple registration page. It also reiterates the cost, so folks have that transparency of $20 a month versus $220 a year, saves you 1 month's worth of supervision login. So that's an option. I'm going to show you a login because I know people have questions about what is involved in the ESR before you make a commitment to trying it out. But also in here, you have more about us, our online courses for supervision, and our YouTube channel, which has quite a few role play videos of supervision for folks who want that. So let's go ahead and log in as a pretend account and show you a couple things. So once you subscribe, you log in. It's going to prompt, for those who have not yet subscribed, it's going to prompt you to put in a credit card for that payment, monthly or yearly. And you'll get reminder emails as your monthly subscription renews or as the annual subscription renews. So people have that in place. They don't have to remember it because I know we have lots on our plate. So green bar of signed in successfully. Again, if you want to change anything about your account, you can go to My Account, and that should load as what subscription plan you're on, with credit card information, but also gives you more about changing your password and whatnot. So because this is a demonstration account, it doesn't have a prompt, but it would have a prompt here to cancel your subscription, which is also an option for folks that need something different or need to pause their subscription. And so all of this is showing up under My Account. When you log in, you get to the dashboard, which right now you can see is like a test account, but has a couple appointments in it. And so we have a supervision session today and triadic supervision. So you'll have a calendar view. You can create a new appointment, but then you also have a list of those depending on which visual you like better. And so that's an option. So let's go ahead and create a new appointment. And let's just call it Supervision Duo. Call it with like initials for folks. One of the features we're trying to improve at this stage of this recording is to actually have multiple invites go out to multiple supervisees. So if you do have triadic or multiple people supervision, group supervision, that would be an option in the future. So at the time of this recording, which is September 2025, that is on the list. So right now it only shows one supervisee's email, but eventually we'd like to be able to pick multiple folks so they all get their reminder email in their account. Let's go ahead and put some supervision on the 10th. Let's just say 2 o'clock. So all of this is just a real quick thing. If you get an error message, the most common error we get for folks is if they forget to put the right date. So it automatically populates the date that we're on today. And so if you pick the wrong date, it's going to give you an error message and not actually save the appointment because it shows that it's going over a duration of multiple days. Just a visual check here, same day, different time. Recurring. So this is something our users asked for, of recurring appointments. So we can say weekly appointment. You saw here also bi-weekly and monthly. So we'll say weekly appointment for this person. For people, I said duo for this. And then how many times you want it to repeat. So maybe we'll say 2 times for this demonstration. Save appointment. So our system is a work in progress. So you'll also see that it takes a moment to upload and save that appointment. So have patience as we look at the little circle up here is doing its work, but shouldn't take long for us to then put the appointment together. And it should take us back to the home page, that dashboard we were just at with the calendar view. So we get the nice happy message, appointment created, invite sent. So that's the invite, meaning a calendar invitation has been sent to your supervisee. They don't have to be in this system. It doesn't cost them anything as a supervisee, but if they want to use the system, it would cost something. So right now, the purpose of putting in an email is so they get those email reminders of the appointment that you have for supervision. So you can see here that we've got weekly supervision set up from that same time. And then we also have it listed here. So show more would give you more of the appointments if you have lots of supervisees or want to look further out. But it's just showing them in an order based on date here. So the 8th versus the 10th. So also in here, we can say add note. So for today's date, let's assume that the appointment has happened, that session for supervision. In the notes format, you have two different notes. You have a standard note, which is built off of our empowerment model of supervision. And then you have an empowered 90, which is a 90-minute supervision framework. So I want to show you both of those, but let's look at the standard to start. And so it's going to auto-populate some stuff based on the calendar appointment, just like any other EHR. And then it gives you a chance to put meeting type. So let's say in person. Did they have, did you ask a question about continuing education? Was this meant to be a system that helps people keep things organized? Of do they have their continuing education certificates uploaded? Have they reported to you that they're taking continuing education? Let's say that wasn't a conversation you had that time. You've got a bunch of different checkboxes here of topics you covered. Was it a clinical case review, which is very often what supervision might be? Was it about ethics? Was it some feedback, crisis review, diagnosing, mandated reporting? Was it about looking at progress notes, critical incident review? So just some different options here that you can put into place. So let's say we did a clinical case review with some crisis review as our top two priorities. And so then under topics other, you have a place to put some other things that maybe you covered. So maybe you covered DORA license renewal, which is our licensing body here in Colorado. Things like that. Maybe you had a supervisor who had questions about the duration of their license or their candidacy, depending on what state you're in. Next, we have just the empowerment model of clinical supervision roles. So what roles did you embody in this supervision? For folks who are not familiar with our model, we highly encourage you to come check it out at empowermentmodelsupervision.com. But in essence, it's a model that shows that your role as the clinical supervisor is fluid. So you're going to show up in these different roles based on what your supervising needs. So maybe because they had questions about their license renewal, you were in a researcher role, trying to help them figure out what that looks like, what the steps are, what the cost is. But maybe mainly you were in teacher role because you were helping them with the crisis review and some of those case review elements. So you check as many as are relevant, and then you can also put in some details of the actual supervision session. So for most supervisors, we have to keep notes on our clinical supervision. So you could jot things in here. Reviewed case with client initials on active SI and resulting safety planning, right? So like you can put in all sorts of stuff here. I was taught just like a line per thing. So maybe it was that, and then maybe you did a case review of new client OP, diagnosis of MDD, right? So put in as much or as little as you want. This is what that box is for. The critical incident recommendations. So maybe it was refined safety plan, introduced scaling for ongoing SI. Maybe it's just like frequency of sessions, right? So whatever you need to put here for your notes and for your supervisee. And professional recommendations, update safety planning template, look into safety planning apps for client use. Next soup on 9/19. Right, so you can put all sorts of stuff there. And then we hit save appointment note. It's going to load it hopefully for us. Have a little bit of patience with us as we are continuing to improve this tool. So it is not as fast as I would like, but it is saving the information for us. And hopefully it'll just take a couple seconds. So then we get that note saved, right? So it should show up now as edit or PDF. So this allows you to go in and edit it, but also the edit PDF gives you a download PDF option. So that's just showing us what we put in and what that could look like. So I'm going to back out of it. So another option, if I wanted to do a different note for a different meeting, now this one hasn't happened yet, but you can put in a note. So the other template that we put in here is thanks to Christina Murphy, co-founder of the Empowerment Model of Supervision, co-creator of this tool. This is her baby. And so she wanted a note that looks reflective of her 90-minute supervision model because she works with high acuity cases with her team and wanted to show that framework. So again, auto-populate some information. You can still put, video if it was a telesupervision. Maybe we talked about 2 hours of training. So designed to align with ESR domains, right? So it has clinical oversight, administrative review, professional growth, and leadership development. So those are some of the focus points of why this template has been created. So some prompts here. Were there any critical incidents? So in Christina's framework, we have a 5-minute allocation at the beginning of every supervision to make sure no critical incidents have happened. And if they have happened, they have the priority. So that's why you see that as the first box here in her note. Administrative, it was about file audits, claims issues, credentialing, use of company platforms, other administrative things that might be going on. So 15 minutes allocated for that. 10 minutes for service hour review. Maybe we're making sure that hours are reflected accurately for our supervisee, things of that nature. Professional growth and counselor support needs 5 minutes. And then you see the majority, like traditional supervision, 60 minutes of case consultation. So looking at case review, what's going on with clients? Are we experiencing transference, countertransference? Are there resources this client needs? Are there places people are feeling stuck with their clients? So it might be up to 2 high risk or complex cases, depending on what's going on there, but also outcomes, looking at different tools and screeners, intervention planning and reflection, and then, of course, the integration of our roles in the ESR of teacher, consultant, colleague, leader, and researcher. So that speaks to how do we show up as clinical supervisors when it comes to staffing those cases. Last but not least, to-do list, follow-up, 5 minutes. So this is all adding up to a 90-minute framework for supervision. By no means does it have to be in this order, but this is the order that Christina has utilized when it comes to documenting how supervision's going. Again, coming from a place of priority is critical incidents, because that's a population that she serves in that way. So we come back to the dashboard. We've looked at notes. We've looked at how to edit them, download them as PDF, write them, of course, with those 2 templates. In this example template that we're looking at, we have supervisor listed, and then this particular login also has a supervisee listed. So these are, again, just demo accounts to show the different pieces. But as a supervisor, we would have a list of supervisees, and we would add those supervisees. You can add new emails, first name, last name. So I might say, okay, well, I have a supervisee. I'm just going to make this up with the email that we've got going on here. And I might say, okay, and what's their title? Are they an LPCC? Are they a CAS or a CAT here in Colorado, as in certified addiction specialist or technician? Are they a social work candidate? Depending on what state you're in, you'll have the title reflect that. So we go ahead and add them in. Now, at this point, that email gets a notification of, hey, supervisor has added you to their own electronic supervision record, and invites the supervisee to create their own login if they want to start using our ESR for certification or like uploads of CE certificates, or to share documents with their supervisor, like hours logs, all sorts of good stuff. Not an obligation by any means to add a supervisee or to have a supervisee use the system. But as a supervisor, we want to be able to reflect, here are our supervisees, right? So like that's what that looks like. Multiple supervisees would be listed here. Supervision info, if you click on it, it also starts to count up based on notes that you're writing, what kind of amount of supervision they've had with you. So how many hours of supervision? We are working to also add a space for how many hours of direct client hours versus indirect hours, because a lot of our licensing boards want that. There's also a place to put notes. Are they canceling frequently? Do they require telehealth supervision or telesupervision? Just some notes that you would put in here based on your supervisee. So back out of that one. We also have a tasks, because as a type A human, I love tasks. So you can put in tasks as you need to, check them off as they're completed. So let's say that today we did a goal review, so we can check that off. We might want to edit one of them and say hours review times however many supervisees we have, 6 to 5, submit. So like this is just a nice place to organize tasks related to clinical supervision or financial therapy supervision, depending on our user. And then there's a place to invoice. So if you have supervisees, now this was a distinction our folks wanted, the people who are using this ESR right now. There are folks that are using the ESR as part of a group practice or an agency or community mental health center, where they would not invoice folks because it's built into the job description. You get supervision as part of what you do. So we wanted to make it where folks can either supervise and not submit invoices, or folks who are doing private supervision, as in maybe you have someone who wants your supervision expertise on the outside of their job. Maybe they're in private practice and this is your private practice and supervision. You can invoice those folks. We have both options. We can create a new invoice that would then select the supervisee we want to invoice at whatever amount we've agreed to based on our supervision contract. And again, this is for folks who are doing private supervision, not folks who have supervision built in to their offering. And so we wanted to make that something you had to manually set up, because we didn't want to assume that folks were billing for supervision, because we actually have more users who are using this in group practices and agencies than we do private practice supervisors at this stage. So That's what this is all about, is creating a new invoice, and then you'll be able to see which ones are paid, view all if they were in here, supervision payments. We've got like a record here of what that would look like. Description appointment would be from the calendar. You can view it, you can download it. And then my personal favorite option in here is documents. So maybe as a supervisor, I want to share a resource with a supervisee. So I can share it here and it shows up in their login if they have a login. Now, this is contingent upon the supervisee having their own login into the ESR, but maybe we just want to upload something they shared with us and keep it all in one place. It could be an hours log. It could be a certificate of completion for a training that we asked them to do. It could be showing us their malpractice insurance if they are required to have that as part of their employment or whatever that looks like. So upload documents is a pretty standard feature in here, but one of my personal favorites. So if we uploaded something, it would show up here as a listed document with a little icon versus shared with me. That would be if my supervisee or a fellow supervisor shared. Now, at the time of this recording, that is one of the biggest updates we're trying to make, is that there are people who have multiple supervisors within agencies or community mental health or group practices, and we'd like for two supervisor accounts to be able to talk to each other. At the time of this recording, that's not yet an option, but that is what we're working on. So I do have a quarterly newsletter that's letting people know what improvements we've made to the ESR and what improvements are still to be made to the ESR. So if you have suggestions or thoughts or what you would like to see as a current user, please let us know. Email us at empowermentmodelsupervision@gmail.com and let us know what you'd like to see, knowing that we are slowly improving and building as we can, and that there's just a lot of moving parts here when it comes to this service. So that is a very quick walkthrough. Let us know what questions you have, and hopefully this was helpful.